Welcome to Controlling the Mind and the Machine podcast. Oh, that makes my heart feel good to say that. I'm your host, Erica Chadwick, creator of Tech Mobility. It's a recovery program, and it incorporates stress management, injury prevention, and rehabilitation. And then this kind of stuff. Solutions brought to the YouTube. So, speaking of solutions, I posted an hour-long chronic low back pain therapy video on my channel, on my YouTube channel. So subscribe so you can get alerts for when I post stuff. But that freaking video, dude, it's an hour of just straight stretching. Bomb. Y'all need it. Y'all need it. I needed it. I freaking wrote that freaking whole thing because my back feels like shit right now. I'm stressed out. And I'm bored. Oh my God, I'm so bored. So yeah, it's definitely been interesting with all this self-quarantine, stuff like that. So definitely made some TikTok videos. And I'm 35 and I don't give a shit. It was actually really fun. There's a lot of cool police videos that are out there that are definitely showing a different side to police officers, which is cool. And some of you guys are like embarrassed, but I think it's cool from an outsider perspective, and sometimes good publicity is nice. So what else did I do this week? I had some private sessions. That was really cool. So, Tech Mobility. So I do one-on-one video sessions where we just get you out of your thoughts and more into your body. And we do some movements and breathing techniques and stuff that can help you just like relax, just kind of chill out and, take a break from like that kind of always on feeling. So those give me fucking life. I love them. They are effective and they're easy to do. So I love them. And officers, I'm doing a little special, so you guys will get your first session free. So if you just want to like talk and let a little bit of that pressure out, it's a really great tool to use because you can start to just sleep better almost immediately. It's insane how much your body just wants a little bit of relief. And that's important to give to your body. So, take me up on it. What else? Some just super unfortunate news. There were 2 officers in the Thin Blue Line family that were shot and killed in the line of duty this last week. So it was really shitty. In Phoenix, the Phoenix Police Department, Commander Carnicle, he and 2 other officers sustained gunshots, but he was the one that did not make it through that incident. So condolences to his family. That's local here. I'm outside of Phoenix and I grew up in Phoenix. And then in Nevada, that state's become really close to me. And there was a sergeant who was, again, shot and killed in the line of duty. Just really shitty. So, prayers for the family and just all of the love there. So my episode today is with a fast friend, actually. We met once and then I was like, we're best friends now. And then I had asked if anybody was involved in a shooting that wanted to participate in the podcast. And bro was like, hey, I can help out. So yeah, Officer Jimmy is, he's talking to us about what it's like to work with poor leadership. There's, at least I don't hear a lot of conversation about that. I hear a lot about the importance of good leadership, which is so important. But, it's kind of like what about the shitty leadership, because shitty leadership exists in every industry. And, when these policies that you don't have any control over come from people that you don't find to be good leadership, that can get really tricky. Hear a lot of that. And, sometimes it's the policy or the procedure coming from them. So poor leadership is a big topic that we talk about in the episode. We talk about him being involved in shootings and what came out of that. Some of the what ifs he talks. Oh, I love it. There is this frickin'. This is a frickin'. I was gonna say frickin' and fucking, and I said frickin'. It's gonna be a new thing, frickin'. So he talks about what ifs. He's super vulnerable in the episode, and there's this theme with like a lot of the episodes that are coming up. The next two, because I only have two that I've recorded, two other ones. So those vulnerability, like the willingness to like be real with your shit and just be honest, he's so good about explaining all of the thought processes that happened after these shootings, like what came of that. And then hyper-vigilance. That one is, hyper-vigilance is a bitch. It's a bitch because it's so exhausting. Oh my God. It's so exhausting. I have my own hypervigilance, and, everyone is going to experience it. So it doesn't matter what your trauma has been. If you have trauma, hypervigilance is like a very common response from the body. And I just really think it's important to simplify hypervigilance, just in case you don't know. I think it's important to go over it. So like your brain, when it goes through something, when your body experiences something, when you have an incident, whatever, your brain detects some level of fear. And that fear can be, your safety or the safety of others, or again, those what ifs. Your brain comes up with these what ifs, right? So in order to stay safe in the future, your brain comes up with these set of rules that you're going to do, or like this checklist of things that you're going to do in order to have as much control over the potential next situation that could arise, right? So it's a really smart thing that your brain is trying to do, but it can also, if you don't recognize it, or if you do recognize it and you don't have the tools to manage it, it can just take over and make everything exhausting for you, for the people you work with, or your family, you know what I mean? Your friends. It can be a lot. So, solutions, man. We're talking about shit that is helpful. I want to challenge you to, the next time that you you can sense that like you are fucking turned on. You know what I mean? Like that on button. Like you're in line at a grocery store and you are just like, wait, you're fucking ready for what ifs. You know where the exits are. You've done all these things and you can feel like some muscular tension, or just kind of like this, like, looking for a suspect kind of mentality. When you recognize that happening and you have done what you needed to do to know what exits you need to be aware of, whatever, okay? You've done all that, because that stuff is happening for a reason, right? Like you've experienced something that has led you to believe that situations that are unsafe and out of control can get really violent really fast, right? So it's, once you've done that, announce to yourself, I'm not in control of anything outside of myself. And I mean that like you're not in control of what anybody else around you decides to do. That's the same at that grocery store. That's the same at work. What other people choose to do is out of your control. But you can also remind yourself, like, when you're in that grocery store or you're in a situation where you don't need to be on, right? You can also say to yourself, I have trained for all kinds of incidents, whether that's routine traffic stops or domestic violence calls or aggravated assault or child things or SWAT things, whatever, warrant things, whatever it is, you have trained for this stuff and you are prepared to survive. I'm prepared to survive, right? I'm going home and I'll protect whoever I need to. And I'm going to do all of that in compliance with the law because I know the law. So it's going, okay, I sense it, like I want to be aware of how to stay safe in this situation because I've been here before. And then it's letting your brain know that like you're not in control of anything else around you, but you are prepared if you need to be, but right now is not that time. Because you've already done the work. You've already done your due diligence to make sure that it was safe. And then you're accepting that outside of what you can be aware of in front of you, you don't have control over that, but you are ready to do all that you need to do if that happens. Okay, so it's letting go and trusting in yourself and having confidence that you know what to do if you need to. So that's a challenge. That's a challenge. And if you do the challenge, shoot me a message. You guys, I'm telling you, just try something, right? Like if you're having a hard time or you're just like exhausted from being on, try it. Like only something good can happen from that. You know what I mean? And if it doesn't work, then you're right back where you're at. So do it. And then tell me what department you're out of and I'll send you a hat. Hats are awesome. This episode is sponsored by Raven Crest Tactical Out the Front Knives. Spring Assisted OTFs. Out the front. That's what that means. OTF. Quality knives assembled here in Mesa, Arizona. You guys, literally the best lifetime warranty that you could freaking come up with. There's nothing that the warranty doesn't cover except for losing that shit. So check them out. Head over to ravencresttactical.com. If you use coupon code ERICA, ERICA, you'll get 10% off. So do that. Everybody loves to save money. Everyone loves to save money. Use the coupon code ERICA. Without further ado, I'm going to shut my yapper and let Officer Jimmy tell us his story. Here we go. Dude.
All right. That's better then. It works out.
Yes. Did your phone die?
Yes, it fucking did. Sorry. I didn't even notice. Like, it just went...
I feel like that is you not being prepared for all situations.
It is 100%. However, if you include the fact that I have another phone to go to, then
That's
it's
true. That's
okay.
true. That was baller. Okay. Okay. So you were saying that you guys do violent warrants.
Yeah, we handle violent felonies. So basically, anybody in the county that gets violent felony warrants, i.e., murder, attempted murder, kidnapping, rape, things like that. That's predominantly what we go find them and bring them to jail. So we picked up a guy the other day. The first thing he's talking about, because he has no bond warrant, which means he's got to see a judge first. So the first thing he does is, I've been feeling kind of sick. I think I may have that virus. I need to be tested. Trying to get out of jail, but we've kind of already got that squared away. So now he's just in isolation for 14 days. So it kind of backfired. And he absolutely does not have it. He just doesn't want to sit in jail.
So now he's gonna go fucking crazy being alone by himself.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, so violent felonies.
Yes.
So that just seems like it's like a big old ray of sunshine every day that you interact with someone. Am I right?
It's different. I mean, sometimes it goes a lot better than you would expect. I mean, sometimes it's simply us knocking on the door and the person's like, okay, and they come out and everything's cool. then other times it turns into a more elaborate extraction.
So how did you get involved in policing, and how old were you?
Wow, I've been in for 16 years now, roughly. I went and did a ride along a long time ago. Buddy suggested it, so I went and did a ride along, and was like, wow, this is pretty cool. They pay people to do this, and then I started reserving with an agency, which is kind of like, you're not certified, but you kind of help out, things like that. So I did that for a while, and then decided it's what I wanted to do. So that's kind of what brought me into law enforcement. I haven't looked back.
So none of your family was in law enforcement?
No.
What'd your dad do?
Dad works in the electronics field, and family's kind of in the radio business. So, yeah, I know, right?
What?
Yeah. Family has been in the radio business. So, my grandparents started a radio station in 1961, and so kind of been doing that.
Did your mom do that stuff too?
No. She, mom was a teacher, and then had to retire out medically. So, yeah, kind of a little bit.
So a lot of people that become officers have that kind of like adrenaline bug, or like that whatever. So it's kind of interesting that you jumped in and you're a radio station and a school teacher. Those seem kind of like the opposite of like policing type of environments.
Yeah, I mean, it really was. I grew up, as far as the adrenaline side of it, I played ball, I raced mountain bikes, dirt bikes, things like that. So kind of was always interested in that kind of stuff. And then, like I said, that first ride along was a good night. So I think that's what hooked me. So
did you started off as patrol? How long were you in patrol for?
In patrol, probably 8 years. And then, yeah, that would be fair, 8 years. And then the previous agency I worked narcotics and K9. So done that.
So you had a dog?
Yes, I did.
Wow. Was it just a narc dog, or did you a bite dog too?
He was a narc dog. That's it. So
how long were you doing that for?
I did that for 6 years.
How do you like that? My guy does that, and he's like, it's fucking awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's trying. At the last agency I was with, it wasn't very organized. I was just kind of like thrown to it. Basically, I got the dog simply because the dog was a problem for the previous handler, and it embarrassed the agency. So they were thinking about actually getting rid of the program, and I just basically stepped up and was like, hey, the problem's between them, not necessarily the dog.
Yeah. And
it worked out. We were a pretty successful team. I loved it. It was nice having somebody in the car with you every day. Even though it's a dog, it gave you something to do, an interaction. It was good for the public to see. We did a lot of educational stuff, like with kids and schools and things like that. So that part of it, the PR side of it, was really good for policing in general.
Mm-hmm.
But it was definitely fun. But it was a big responsibility. We didn't have the best equipment, so anytime I was out on a call, and y'all have hot out there, but we have muggy and hot.
You have sweaty balls.
So there were a couple times, the car air conditioner or quit running while I was out on a call or something, and came back and holy shit, my dog almost died.
Oh my God.
Things like that. Yeah, and you hear about things like that happening in the news, but when you really get to looking at it, it may not be the officer's fault. It may be the officer doing the best he can, and the agency just don't care. So that was kind of the problem I had with the previous agency. They didn't care.
So I talk about how there's job-related stressors. So in the tech mobility program, every human has a certain level of stress that they'll experience, with just relationships, finances, health, whatever shit. And then you have job-related stressors that only police officers will be able to relate to you on. And a big portion, I have a survey that I send out, and policies and procedures is a huge source of stress. Did you leave that agency?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And that was a big thing. I had been there 13 years and invested a lot.
Oh,
And the
wow.
way they just, I'd finally had my fill, and leadership, again, just didn't care. Um, and that was once and I think that's a problem across the board. Uh, as far as for the guys in stress, like you said, is
Yeah.
because when you work for somebody who truly just doesn't care either way, then that changes things.
Yeah, especially because so many of you guys that go into the profession, you want to make a really big difference, but you're also like these like go-getter, like get the job taken care of, like you want to move, you want to go, you don't want to like sit around and like wait, and then to
Right.
wait and you hear garbage.
Yeah, this profession is incredible about being slow as hell to make a decision, but when they want something from you, it needs to be yesterday.
I don't like it. I don't like it. So when I had asked you to do the podcast, I was like, if you've been involved in a shooting, that would be great. And you're like, I've had 3.
Yeah, been involved with 3 of those and some other critical instances. It's just being in an area. The city I was in was kind of in between 2 larger cities, so and it was right off a main interstate. So we had a lot of junk come through. So one thing led to another, and those things happened.
So when was your first shooting?
6 months out of the police academy in 2005.
You're a baby.
I was, and I was off duty at the time too. So
What happened?
I walked in on a robbery in progress, actually going to get my taxes done, and walked in on a robbery in progress and didn't know it. So,
I need more information.
well, essentially, walked in, just kind of nonchalantly, like we all would. I think it was like 11 o'clock on a Wednesday, and basically the guy was robbing it. He came out from the back. Didn't know it at the time. He was kind of concealing the gun. Asked me to kind of step in the back where the other people were, which is kind of my first one. It's like, hey, something's odd with this, with nobody being in the front of the store. And about the time I turned around, he had a pistol in my face and pulled the trigger. So,
What?
yep. So 6 months out, it's like, hey, welcome to law enforcement.
He pointed the gun at you, and there was like a dry fire?
No. He shot at me probably as he was running out. But no, he shot, and as I turned, of course it missed, thank God. But so that was my introduction to law enforcement.
So what happened to the guy?
I returned fire, and then he got out and hit the road, and then was caught just down the road.
So you were carrying.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it was different. I learned a lot. Like I said, way back then was things were different. Holsters were different. There's been a lot of changes since then in law enforcement in general. So,
What do you mean holsters were different? Why do you say that?
well, at that time, I had borrowed a friend's Serpa holster, and anybody that's been in this business for a long time remembers Black Hawk making the Serpa holsters. And at the time, they were just the hot shit. It was retention but low profile and that kind of thing. So it was kind of one of the early model first retention off-duty carry holsters. So now we've got stuff that fit. Like appendix carry, for example, is more secure. It's faster for the draw. It hides better. Things like that. Back then you're kind of like strapping a gun on your side and just throwing a t-shirt over it and not really worrying about printing.
So I need to understand this situation more clearly. So you walk in, there's nobody in the building, and
Right.
he comes out and tells you to go back or...
Yeah. Back to the back, kind of like where some other offices were.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so when I started to step in between, I guess it would be the doorway between the front of the building and the back offices, like where the bathrooms would be or something like that. I kind of turned back around to address him, and when I did, that's when he was pointing the gun and fired.
Did you tell him that you were police?
Oh, no. He had no idea. Yeah, it wouldn't have matter. I could have been just anybody. I mean, he didn't care.
So what did you do after that?
Well, I couldn't see, and I had powder burns on my, like, kind of around my eyes, my nose, and my mouth, just from how close it was. He shot at me with a Glock 30, which is a compact 45 ACP pistol. So that happened to have belonged to the business owner there at the place. So
like
he stole it.
Oh.
Yeah.
So how did you? So you're 6 months in. That happens. Does that scare you, or does that kind of like fuel that fire of like?
It fueled it because it pissed me off. I mean, that's the main thing I took away from that was how mad I was. And I was partly because, you know, going back and replaying it step by step in my mind, there were other things that kind of stood out, but whether I just hadn't been in long enough to pay attention or I didn't listen to that little voice going, hey, something's wrong with this. And so I was just pissed off. And I was pissed off that the store owner had left the gun out in plain view in the back. Because essentially we found out later the guy had come in to rob it with a BB gun, then saw that gun sitting beside the money, got that gun, then had an actual firearm.
So you were, the anger was at yourself?
Kind of all around. Just I was mad about it. I was mad that I didn't hit him initially, but I mean, I couldn't see. It was more of a get off me round type thing, and then looking at it now with the experience I have now, I'm like, well, damn, I could have hit somebody returning fire, which is bad. So just, you know, it was a learning lesson all around, and I'm thankful that I lived through it. So. What
was the debrief like for that? Like, what happens after that?
We didn't really do debriefs back then. So the city I was working for was kind of a neighboring city to where I was at, and the two cities didn't really get along. So here is little old rookie getting in a gunfight in a neighboring city. So there was all that to deal with, and it was just kind of like, I think they had me back at work like the next day. Like it was nothing. They didn't. I mean.
Did you register that at all as like
no,
being a scary, you fucking almost died, like the average person would go into like depression or something like that?
No, I really didn't. I ended up several weeks later, maybe a month later, started having some health issues. Like I'm typically a healthy person. I started having stomach issues, some things like that, sleep issues. I just kind of, I never, I guess, put two and two together.
So, say that again?
It came out that way. I said essentially it came out that way. It came out with, I guess, stress, and stomach problems and stuff. So
that's a huge part of post-traumatic stress that not a lot of, it's a newer science now that people are understanding that there's like this mind-body connection where anything that happens in your mind, anything that you perceive as traumatic or difficult or hard to process, when not dealt with, or if you don't have the resources to deal with it, your body sort of like stores that emotion and that energy, and then it starts to malfunction and sort of break down. Tomorrow I've got a private session with an officer who first day on the job involved in a shooting, and now the officer can't sleep. Just immediate response of the body goes like, that was not fucking normal. That was not okay. We don't like it. Super wild. So how far in between that shooting and your next shooting?
About 3 years.
Okay. So in those 3 years, did it bother you the entire time?
Just off and on. Like I said, I would have, I would get nauseous and just have like, I don't know, like vomiting spells just for no reason, or like after work or something. Sleeping, the sleeping issue of being a cop is you don't really sleep that well anyway. I hadn't met too many cops that sleep great, but it would have time, then and then. As far as bad dreams and things like that, no. I was actually proud of how I had responded, so that was a positive in it. And that's kind of one of the things I tried to look at. I tried to look at the situation as, okay, I'm going to learn from it this way. The other thing I realized that really scared the shit out of me was, at the time, I just carried a sidearm. I didn't carry a spare mag or nothing. And I remember thinking how naked I felt, going, if I need more rounds than what's in this gun, I'm screwed. And so that was something else I learned from it, that, carry spare ammo. That was just, so I tried to look at the positives of it, focus on the positives. I didn't choose that situation. They did. I just reacted to it and went on from there. So tried to build off that.
I like that you said that you didn't choose that situation. I think that that's really important. Like, I'm always, like, my ears are always very kind of open and sensitive to hearing stuff that sounds helpful. And that right there is really big, because a lot of officers identify with the violence or the darkness or the nature of the call as being their own. And there's no like clear separation that people like intentionally make themselves aware of.
Well, and that's, it's one thing. I don't know. I have not met a cop that truly has gone to work and go, you know what, I'm going to get in a gunfight today. That's what I want to do. Typically anybody that's been involved in an incident like that, or a critical incident, they've had to respond. I mean, it's we don't choose it. We even thinking about any type of barricaded suspect, we're always trying to give somebody the opportunity to come out or do what they got to do. They're the ones that choose the route that we take. So
do you find yourself like anticipating situations like that when you go into buildings?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm definitely always looking. And it did. Several years later, I actually avoided one because of that. I looked in now, and I don't park in front of the door of the business. I mean, it's definitely, you can call it a scar if you want to, but I call it a lesson learned.
Yeah. Other people would call it hyper-vigilance.
Well,
yeah.
I don't want to be in that same situation behind the curve again.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a super common response that the brain has is, I will not be in that position again. And so you put into place certain things that are your brain's way of creating more control, because you recognize how little control you have, right, in that situation.
Right.
There was like a lack of control on your part, which creates like frustration stuff. That's so interesting. Yeah. So you said there was about 3 years in between your next shooting. What were the details with that one?
That essentially was a vehicle pursuit that turned into a situation where the suspect tried to run over some other officers and myself. And so we returned fire into the vehicle, striking him. So,
why was he trying to run you over?
He was trying to get away. He was a drug mule out of Atlanta. And like I said, we're off of a major interstate. Mm-hmm. And he had run from a state trooper, which you got to give those guys a lot of love because of their hats and all. But the trooper didn't ever put it out on the radio that he had just had a vehicle flee from him in our area. So I see a vehicle driving erratically. I go to stop it. One thing leads to another. We get into a pursuit. And then he tries to run an officer off of basically a big river. We've got another large river in that area. As we were going over it, he tried to ram the officer off of the bridge. So then once we wrecked out on the outside of the bridge.
Oh, my God.
Then so had we have known that there was a situation where he'd already fled another, law enforcement officer, probably could have handled that a little different. So,
like, you wouldn't have been like, let's pull him over. Like, it would have been like more.
It would have been let's pull him over, but we would have probably been able to get more people in the area initially. And, it could have prevented him getting back to the interstate probably.
So multiple of you fired shots into the vehicle?
Yes,
or was it just you?
Into the second one, yeah. Several, I think 5 of us.
So what was that like afterwards? I mean, so did you see yourself shoot him? Or is that like in my brain, I don't know.
Shooting through a vehicle is and shooting a person, it's usually not the response you get from watching TV.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I only have my
that's not how it
cinema
works.
imagination here.
Yeah, that's not how it works. And in between the shooting, the first shooting and the second shooting, one of the things that I did was I wanted to go to firearms instructor school. So I practiced, worked, and then was able to go to firearms instructor school. So I had been to that by the time of the second shooting. So, I'd gained some skill and done some things and gotten better, I guess, is what I tried to work through. So it was different. Again, always looking at every situation. That was kind of a shitty situation because not all agencies practice the same, I guess, safe firearms handling skills that you or your agency might not. So there was a lot of crossfire issues, and in the situation, we were very lucky that all of us didn't get shot because it was pretty bad. We had some another agency that participated in it, and one of their rounds actually hit and ricocheted and hit one of our officers in the face. At
Oh
the
my
time,
God.
we didn't know it was a ricochet. We thought it was from the suspect. But turns out it was a ricochet off of the vehicle.
And is this the same agency that you guys kind of already had friction with when you got into your first shooting?
No. This is on. I had transferred from there, and was at the agency that I spent 13 years at. So this was a neighboring agency there, and we all kind of in that area in that county, we all really worked good together.
Mm-hmm.
That was one fortunate thing, but we didn't necessarily train together, which was an issue. So,
what was it like? Did you have a mandatory time off, desk duty?
No, they had us back 8 a.m. the next morning.
What?
I'm telling you, it's a little different.
What the fuck?
Small town, I say small town, less than 100 officers, let's put it that way. Small town law enforcement is a little bit different.
Did you sleep that night?
Yeah, we finally got to leave. That happened at like 6:30 p.m. We finally left at 2 and we're back at 8 to finish giving statements and all that stuff. Yeah, I mean, there was all kinds of... after that, we tried to write a policy on how to handle it, and it was rejected by the admin.
What would you have done differently? What were you trying to have changed?
Basically, to have a set procedure of, hey, give the initial statement, take the weapons, replace the weapons, as long as, if it's in accordance, give at least 2 sleep cycles. At least 2. A minimum, because you're not remembering everything that instance anyway. So. And
you haven't had a chance to a huge part of being in a stressful environment in general, right? It's completely besides the point that you were involved in a shooting. When your brain goes into like a fight or flight response, your body needs time to reset itself, to calm itself down, for your brain to really know that you're safe and secure. If you know that you get off at 2 a.m., but you have to be back in 6 hours, and you also have to make yourself fall asleep in that amount of time, your brain knows that it can't go into that mode of safety. And that also means that the logic portion of your brain isn't as activated because you're still in your emotions.
Well, and that agency too, the chief at the time was pissed off just because we had gotten in a shooting. He was a very bad leader. And so we had that going on too. You would just have to understand the dynamic, but he's one of those that would smile to your face, but then as soon as you turn around, would be ordering a supervisor to write you up.
I don't like
just
that.
That type of dude. So then there's a shooting. That was the actual first shooting that agency had on the job.
So you ruined it for them. No, fuck the fact that one of their officers, multiple of their officers were just involved in something.
Well, and we weren't even the ones that started shooting first. We only started shooting at the point where the guy put the truck in drive and tried to run us over. We didn't even have sympathetic fire when the first set opened up. So, but yeah, that's the way he was. So
So how did that shooting impact you? Because that's, they are different, right? Between the first
bitter.
shooting and that.
You know, I guess there was definitely a period of time there, like, I was very bitter about everything, just because, like, I didn't do anything wrong. I just did my job. But I got treated like we did something, and we were essentially cleared. They were both, the shoots were good, but we still got treated like redheaded stepchildren just because.
So I interviewed a friend of mine that lives in New York, and she was involved in a shooting that became like a kind of a more public coverage because the suspect was black, and she said that she felt so isolated because everyone made her feel like it was her fault. Like, even though she knows that she wasn't wrong and that that's what she had to do, like, she was left to feel like it was her fault. Like, she did something wrong.
Yeah. And that's the way he, with that chief, the way he was, that's the way it felt. But I abided by every department policy and state and federal law. I mean, I did what I was supposed to do, but then you still get in trouble or still get things held against you and things like that just because.
How long did you feel bitterness for?
It was a while. I started, I would say, probably a year after that. I started having anxiety attacks. After they would never happen while I was at work. Anything could be going on. We could be wide open, chasing people, all that kind of stuff. Bad calls, car wrecks, all that stuff. But then it was like when you got home and you could relax, then you would have it, or I would have an anxiety attack. So that happened a few times. I really didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
I didn't understand it. You hear about people having panic attacks, but I had no idea what that really was. Like, and then it started happening to me. Then I lost my appetite. Like, I went for a while just barely eating anything. I dropped a bunch of weight. Still really didn't know. And then eventually went and sought out some counseling. And then that kind of helped.
Outside of your department?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm assuming. So you didn't use the department counselor for that?
We didn't have one. They didn't offer any.
How long did you use counseling for?
I went pretty steady there for a while. I would say probably 6 months steady.
That's awesome.
And then it kind of slacked off to like once every 3 months, and then just kind of weaned off of it.
Yeah.
And when I stopped having issues, so.
What did you gain from that experience going, like, using counseling?
A lot of perspective. Again, first thing, I didn't know what the crap was wrong with me because I didn't really understand what was going on. So once it got explained and kind of worked through what was going on, then I was able to look at it like, okay, this is what's happening, this is why it's happening, and just start to work through it. And then as I became more understanding of, hey, look, I can't help how somebody's acting towards me just because they don't like something, as long as I didn't do anything wrong. So it was kind of just putting everything in perspective for me helped me deal with it. And then it got better.
I love that it got better. So there's still kind of this stigma that exists now where, like, counseling's for pussies and I'm not going to fucking do it and I'll just, like, deal with it myself and whatever. Like, what do you say to that?
Well, it's mainly I guess, an ego thing, which is what we have a huge problem with in law enforcement anyway. Like, dudes' egos get in the way of just little stuff that doesn't need to be there. So I hate that people feel like that, because if I had somebody actually come talk to me before and be like, hey, this is okay, it's going to be fine that you have these responses, this is why you're having the response, this is what you're going through, or hey man, I've been through it, especially if it's somebody that I looked up to. Like, at the time, of course, me being a baby police, SWAT guys were it. SWAT guys were the dudes, and so if I'd have kind of had, I guess, somebody I respected or a mentor talk to me and be cool about it, but we don't like to talk about our feelings and stuff.
That's really weird. I've never heard that before.
Yeah. So I guess that accountability that in our job we don't want to have, because part of being able to do our job every day is being like, you know what, nothing's gonna happen to me today. And so if I open myself up to feelings or being out of control of something, then that's gonna bother me or something like that. So I hate that people feel like that, but I mean, did I have bad thoughts for having to shoot that dude? No. Again, I didn't choose it.
Yeah.
But it was more of the what ifs that came later that I was having the issues with.
Like, what do you mean?
I mean, what if I'd missed? What if I had hit somebody else? What if my gun didn't work? What if the guy had run us over? Or the guy had run my partner over? Or, things like that. What if the courts had done something crazy with it and, they ended up indicting me again? Just all that kind of stuff. All those what ifs that, I guess we have on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. Yeah. So like the imagination kind of comes in pretty wild there.
Right.
It starts creating stuff. Yeah. I think that it's, I talked with an officer about so much of our world has been for such a long time very black and white. It's this or that, like you're a tough badass or you're a pussy. Like there's no in between ground where you can be a very confident person in the job that you need to do and know what you need to do, but also like have compassion or empathy or vulnerability at the same time and use them in different ways, but that like the two can kind of be together.
Right. Well, I don't know. I think some of that is changing because a lot of these dudes, the same guys that talk about their feelings, are dads.
Yeah.
And so they'll talk about, I don't have feelings for this, but then you go home and play tea with your kid if you have a daughter or whatever. I mean, or whatever. And I just call bullshit on the not having feelings. Shit bothers people. If you have a good heart and you see some fucked up shit, it's gonna mess with you one way or the other.
That is super important that you say that, because so I was talking with a former commander today, and I sent him I'm going to send it to you right now. This is like one of my favorite things to fucking do. We talked about a feeling. Have you ever seen a wheel of emotion?
No.
I'm a ball of emotion. So this right here, look at it. Okay. So this is, oh shit, your phone is dead. Did you charge it?
I got it on the charger, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I got it.
Okay, so this is a whole wheel of different types of emotions that you can feel. There's so many.
Wow.
But look at how like specific these feelings are. Okay. So it's super important to be able to identify how it is that you're feeling. I forgot what the fuck we were just talking about before I sent it to you.
Emotion.
I know, but what were we talking about before that? What did you say before that? You said something and I was like, ooh, fucking ADHD.
About the choosing it, or what? Which part?
I don't fucking know.
You got me confused.
You said
something
something.
Well, we were talking about dudes having feeling like if you've got a good heart.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So it's really interesting that like you got into the job. Most people get into the job because you have a good heart and you have a strong desire for good to prevail. But then you spend so much time and energy trying to lie to yourself that you don't have feelings.
Well, it's. I mean, you really can't lie to yourself.
Well,
right.
I
mean, you can lie to everybody else. You can put on a good show.
That's what I mean.
Unless you're a sociopath, then you can absolutely not have feelings. And I've met a few of those. So that former chief was a sociopath, I promise you. But I just don't think I think you can have that switch that you can flip, and I think that's vital to figuring out. I think that's your balance.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in any kind of leadership role, or you don't even have to be in a leadership role. Just you can roll up on a bad scene and have to take charge and put all your emotions away because that's what you got to deal with. You're gonna deal with it later. one way or the other.
Which is why I think it's really important to be able to identify what emotions you had during that experience, so that you can also, like, looking at the wheel, you see the opposite of that emotion, which is you have that ability to feel that too. So it's not a weakness thing, and it's not a bad thing, and it's not going to mean that you can't do your job as well to be able to admit that you have certain feelings or emotions because somebody else decided for you what the fuck you were getting into today.
Right. Yeah. I mean, absolutely.
So after, okay, so you go back to work the next day, and
we have to go get our warrants on the guy, finish our statements, all that kind of stuff.
And then you start experiencing panic attacks, and you get counseling, and things are getting a little bit easier to navigate, whatever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of figure out a way to go, and focus more on work and things like that.
Okay.
And so things somewhat get better. So.
And then another shooting happens.
Yes. Then.
Or where did your lieutenant and the drownings kind of come in there?
The what?
So.
Okay.
I kind of want to know the timeline in which you're experiencing these like fucked up things. Like we talked about the 2 shootings, but so for listeners,
okay, so there was a third shooting after that.
How far?
At the 3 years. Those 2 were 3 years apart.
Okay.
So we had a SWAT team in the town, and we did a search warrant on the guy he had been robbed twice recently. So we knew from informants that he would have a gun. These are things that we knew. These are things that were in the briefing. And that same chief that I told you about previously. Mm-hmm. Okay, so he decided he wanted to play SWAT cop and dress up in his little gear and kind of hang out with us for the brief. And so we requested the use of flashbangs due to the, kind of the parameters that we have as far as the likelihood of violence and or him having a weapon. So we were denied that. His excuse was that he didn't want to have to call the mayor because somebody's TV got destroyed or whatever for us using a flashbang. So we kind of like, well, okay, those are the cards we're dealt. We're going to deal with it. So we go in, hit the door, and as we hit the door, the guy was on the couch. I was number 2 guy in, roughly, if I remember. Yeah, number 2 guy. So when we started down the hall, we're yelling at the guy to show us his hands. He kind of rears up real fast and then dives down and comes up with something in his hand. So the officer that was beside me fired. I didn't have a shot at the time. My leg holster actually hit. It was a double-wide trailer, so my leg holster actually hit a wall and spun me. So I hear the shot. Actually, I think I even yelled over the radio, "I'm hit," thinking that because it knocked my leg completely out from under me. But eventually what we figured out happened is I took a chunk out of the side of the wall with my thigh holster trying to cut the angle to get the shot. So we ended up going, he kind of locked up there. We pushed him out of the way, went on around, had to finish clearing, came back, went to assess the subject there, assessed him, tried to give first aid, called medics in, things like that. There was no chance in helping that situation due to the location of the shot. That chief who was there playing SWAT cop looked in, kind of saw what happened, and he was gone. Like 2-week vacation right then. From the scene. Left us there. We were kind of in a bowl in a trailer park, like, kind of in a draw of 2 hills, the way the trailer park was. Mm-hmm. So we literally got surrounded. Like, we had to call agencies from all over the county to actually help keep a perimeter so we could get forensic science and everybody in to process the scene. And it was just a bad situation. So that was the third one.
I'm so glad that you left the agency, or that did you say he's not a chief anymore?
No.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
So you were lucky enough to where you weren't the one that shot him, or you were?
Right. No, I was not. No, not on this one. I was, like I said, number 2 guy, but there just was no shot. I was trying to get to the shot, and the wall was there, so I would have taken the shot as well, but there was just, I couldn't get around, couldn't get the angle. I saw the same thing number 1 guy did, but just couldn't get my rifle.
So how did that impact you being a part of the team and not having and not being able to do what you wanted to do in that situation? Did that bother you in the same way that your first shooting did?
No, I mean, it's just geographic location prevented me then. The other issue was just kind of, I mean, we had support from some of the other agencies, but just the fact that our own boss bailed on us, like literally from the scene. And we were there, like I said, we tried to render first aid, but there was no first aid to that. And it was, I want to say it was a little bit easier because I'd already been through 2 prior. So it was kind of easier to help out, I guess, with what needed to be done and doing all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Even though the officer that fired actually outranked me and was more senior than I was at the time. So that one not so much, other than just mainly it was just, again, we didn't have any support. We were just kind of on our own.
So when did the situation with your lieutenant happen?
Okay, so that happened 5 years ago. He was part of that shooting as well. He was on the SWAT team too, so he was part of the entry team. It may even have been his warrant that we were hitting, because at the time he had worked narcotics. So This was somebody that was a friend of mine, kind of mentored me when I got to that agency. Mm-hmm. He was also a K-9 officer. He mentored me in that. We were friends. We deer hunted together. We were actually part of the same hunting club. Like his son, we were really close. And like I said, you're talking about a smaller agency, so less than 100 officers. So pretty much everybody knew everybody. But
yeah,
you still didn't hang out with everybody off duty, but we did. I mean, we did a lot, between planting fields and stuff during the summer to actually hunting together.
Planting fields?
Yeah, for the deer to eat, like green fields. That's what we do here in the South.
What? You plant food for the deers and then you just kill them later?
Yeah, so they're fatter.
Oh, little Bambies.
No, I'm kidding. It's actually deer management. It actually works out better. So it actually helps the entire herd. Because then we can be selective about what we kill.
Oh, instead of like the sickly ones, you get like the juicy ones because you've got a
lot.
Right,
so the sickly ones have a chance to get better.
Oh, that's so nice of you. Okay, now that I know that you're like...
So essentially what had happened with Richard, my lieutenant, it was a St. Patrick's Day 5 years ago. We were all working. It was kind of a busy day. He was the lieutenant over special operations at that agency, and me being K-9 and things like that, like he was our lieutenant. So we were actually on the road helping shift out because they were just getting slammed with calls. I was working just a little nothing wreck, some minor injuries, when we got a call of another wreck, a very severe wreck, that a car was trapped under like a dump truck, basically. And it had two children in it, two teenagers from high school. They tried to beat another set of teenagers back to school to get ready for a soccer game, ran a stop sign, got T-boned, and the dump truck kind of landed on top of them, kind of off the road. Well, my lieutenant used to be a paramedic in a previous life, so he was actually assisting fire and EMS with the jaws of life cutting the car up. So we were en route to that. We got on scene. Medics were already on scene. We already had a helicopter en route because of the entrapment. As a matter of fact, I think the helicopter just landed. Well, in the process of that, it was pretty warm, probably 75, 80 degrees here in Alabama at the time, and Richard collapsed. So he went down once, medics were right there, started working on him, he came back. We all kind of got over there, and he went down again. We went to working on him basically to load him in the ambulance. They couldn't fly him because he wasn't stable enough. So we were pretty close to a hospital, but it wasn't the big trauma hospital that we wanted to get to, but he had to stabilize first before they could fly. Mm-hmm. So we went by ground ambulance. So me and another guy that was very close to him took turns in the ambulance doing CPR to the hospital on him. So he came back one more time in the ambulance, and then after that, We never got him back, even once he got to the hotel, or to the hospital. So that was kind of rough. And then having to tell his wife and son, who, like I said, we've hunted, grown up, and I've watched his kid grow up. So that was rough.
That sounds really scary and really hard. I'm sorry you had to go through that. That sucks. That's big. How did you guys as a team process that together?
Really just kind of ended up sitting around, I guess, like most people would. Those of us that were really close to him, we told stories. Just different funny stories, because we all worked so close together. At the time, those of us that kind of worked out for the city I was with also worked with the county guys, so we were always doing either search warrants together or surveillance together, and him and the kind of the head guy over the county, they'd worked together for over 20-something years. So
yeah,
we're a close little knit group, so we had plenty of stories to share. So it was that's kind of the way to deal with it.
How did that end up impacting your guys' team dynamic? Did that sort of, was there this, you guys became closer and there was, this bond that grew, or was it difficult because did you guys talk through how you were feeling or how that impacted you guys?
Well, it was kind of weird because we did it first and it seemed like it almost brought us together at first, but then everybody, I don't know if it was because we lost the leadership that he provided or what. It just kind of went to it, because we left the lieutenant spot open for a while, which I think was the absolute right choice given the circumstances. Mm-hmm. But in doing that, it just made things tougher as far as the agency. And then I think that led to a lot of other people backstabbing other people for wanting that position and stuff. And like I said, egos get in the way and screw up the best things. So it just kind of turned into, something would come up, we'd share a story, and then be like, yeah, we miss him, and then just move on about our business.
How did that impact you to have to be the one to break that news?
That was probably the roughest part, because you don't really have words to say. I mean, we've done death notifications to random people plenty of times, but when it's somebody that, like, for example, his son, I remember his son was probably 7 or 8, maybe, and Richard, his son, and myself were on a four-wheeler trying to go hunting one morning. It was so freaking cold that we were just all huddled together and had his son in the middle of us on the same four-wheeler. So, this is somebody, stuff like that. So that was probably the toughest part, because, I did everything I could do. The medics did everything they could do, but you wish there was something you could do more. We tried, but at that point, it's not in my hands, it's not in their hands, it was just his time.
So you didn't have any kind of feelings of responsibility or involvement or anything like that?
No, it's not like it was a third person. It was a heart attack, and then later on find out it was a little bit hereditary, for his family that we didn't know, and so it just kind of was one of those things.
Yeah. So I want to go to you said that you've done death notifications to other people before. How many of those do you think you've done?
More than 15 or 20, I guess, being safe.
What? Yeah. And what do you say?
Well, there's no real script for it. You may have a script in your mind before you knock on that door, but once that loved one comes to the door, it's just, you just have to tell them, and you have to be blunt about it, and you have to be, kind of to the point about it. You try to be as I guess, empathetic as you can be, but you just have to get it out there. That's the best way.
And are these, forgive my ignorance here, but are you giving death notifications to suspects who have died because they got into some shit and they died, and now you are notifying the family of their death? Or
Done that too. Car wrecks, boat wrecks, plane crash, kind of all across the board.
so does that impact you after you do that?
Only when it's kids. Only when it's children.
Children that died, or children that you have?
Yeah, children that died. Yeah, we don't, that's one thing, we're not going to do a death notification to a child. We'll let the parent or whoever take care of that. But yeah, the kids are the hard ones. I mean, it's just, it's frustrating, but again, you have to look at it like, it wasn't up to you. So.
Wow. There's still two more things I want to ask you. So you said that you responded to 2 drownings as well.
Yes.
So where do the drownings fit in the timeline of the 3 shootings and the heart attack?
Right after Richard, we had them a year apart. And then there was, let's see, 13-year-old girl at a field day at school too that we lost and worked on. So being in a lake community, everybody's all about it because everybody likes to play on the water, but it's definitely got its drawbacks, and those are, unfortunately, the 2 drownings are what we lived through. And it's one of those crazy freak of nature things. One of them, the little boy, drowned in probably 2.5 foot of water, with 70 other people right there in the little homemade beach area. I mean, it's one of those things. Like, how does that even happen? But it did. So.
Did those impact you the same way as the shootings did?
No, those are a little worse. I guess simply because of, like, these are kids, these are kids that are hanging out with their families and hanging out at the lake. The first one, the little girl jumped in the water and she went kind of near the boat ramp, and when she went off, where we're at, it's a kind of a man-made lake, very large, but it's got a real mossy, mushy, nasty bottom to it. It's like a muck. So essentially what happened was when she jumped in, she hit the bottom and her feet stuck. And it was just above her head.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
like, I mean, basically it took them just a minute to kind of like, hey, where's so-and-so? She didn't come up. And then when they jumped in, they found her, and then we just happened to be real close on both of them. But there's just, again, that's something that, and CPR has changed over the years, but, kids, you still do breaths. And like my partner, when we were taking turns working on the little girl, you talk about something that's intimate. I mean, she, tried to get some of the water out, I guess, through body's reaction or whatever. And that was on him when we pulled her out of the water. Our uniforms were still wet when we were at the hospital, just dealing with that. So it's tough. It was tough on him, especially because he had a little girl at the time that was that age. So that makes it rough. Having a kid the same age as the ones, if you see something bad. So, but that's part of the job. I mean, that's part of, unfortunately, the nasty part of it that ain't in the brochure.
Yeah. So what's something that you have learned is important for you to do as far as, like, take away whatever kind of like silly baggage comes along with this term, but self-care, right? Because that's a rough career. And I know that every officer has these experiences in their own, like everyone decides like what trauma looks like for them. And that's based off of what really gets to you. But what's something that you've done to ensure your sanity, or what are some of the self-care things that have helped you?
Setting up, and I say set up because that I'm using that term loosely, but having a network of people that, and it's not necessarily a big network, but like different people that I look up to and respect that I can call and just talk to. And I would say cop friends, and I've got a really close non-cop friend that I can call this and do the same. And that to me, that's kind of helpful because we're all fucked up if we're cops. I mean, I hate to say it that way.
Yeah.
Like, chaos is normal. And people that don't live in our realm don't live in that chaos. So it's nice to have that other perspective of somebody that's not going to judge me, but that I trust. I'm like, hey, saw this today. What are your thoughts? Kind of fucked up, you know. And I think that's something else, is basically getting real about it with myself, of going, okay, that fucked me up for a little bit. What do I need to do?
I think that's really important to have, to find a friend, phone a friend that's not a cop that can remind you of, yeah, man, that was fucked up. That's insane that you saw that. I would feel XYZ.
Well, it is, but at the same time, like being a senior dude that's kind of been through a lot of that, and I say senior, like here at my agency, like I said, I've got 16 years in, so we've got a lot of younger guys.
Say, you're not a fucking senior.
Well,
you're close. You're like 2 years away.
Saying, like where I'm at now, like I'm one of the old dudes.
I see some gray. I see some.
And that's stuff. But it's because when we had a situation here at this agency that I'm at now, and several young guys responded to it, and it was one of those fucked up murder-suicide situations that also involved a child, like a toddler. And the first officer that responded, I think his baby was 3 months old. So, you know, it's good to have those experiences because the guys can talk to, I guess, come to me and like, hey, you know, I'm feeling like this. I'm like, yeah, I know what you mean. And you know, like I said, the shit that I didn't have when things started for me, try to be for them. So.
I'm really glad that you're like open and vulnerable enough to like be there for people and make yourself available. I think that's really important.
Well, it's like I said, if I worried about what everybody thought, and it took me a long time to get that way, then I would be constantly worrying, and I'm kind of over that now at this point in my life. I do my own shit, and you may not like my opinion, you may not agree with it, but that's cool. It's my opinion.
Do you ever train any guys that are younger, or do you interact with any younger cops, not as in age, but as in career length? Do you have any kind of like influence or interaction with them, or are you with more tenured guys?
No, I mean, we got a lot of young guys. I'm a team leader on our TAC team. So I've got a lot of young dudes on my squad. And so, you know, I try to give them advice that I didn't necessarily have.
Yeah.
And a lot of times those guys will call me with questions, and that means a lot to me because that means they trust me. So if that's the case, then, you know, I try to offer what I can. And if I don't have an answer, I know people that do. So.
I love that. All right, Jimmy, I appreciate you sharing that stuff with me. I think it's really important for officers to hear other officers' experiences in different areas and hear some of the things that are helpful. One of my big takeaways from you is hearing from a counselor that like there's a reason that your body is reacting like that, and it's because of the experience that you had. And your brain wants to kind of deal with this stuff and put it to rest, and it wants like some logic and some different perspective to look at the situation through. I think that that's really important for people to hear, is that like a lot of this stuff a lot of the physical symptoms that bother you the most can subside or can change if you deal with some of the shit.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. It's all about being honest with yourself is the biggest thing. And that's sometimes hard. Remember, you know, like I said about ego, sometimes hard to check that ego. But once you do and realize, you know, it is what it is, then
yes, I fucking love that. It is what it is. Like it's like, and this is the case for everybody. When you have trauma, you fucking hold it like it's your precious little baby, and and you become it instead of realizing it that it's like this external like experience that is not you. It's something that happened to you, but it can also be like integrated and unlearned because it is what it is. It's not you. You're not the it.
It doesn't define you.
Fucking nugget, Jimmy.
That'll be my 2 for the month. So might as well make them good. So.
You know what? I feel like you get 3 for the month because you bought me that Crown Royal. You didn't even know me, and you bought me liquor.
Yeah, I mean, I do that for good people. So
I appreciate it. Even though, okay, so I've never been to Columbus. And we go to walk into a liquor store, and he's like, "This is dangerous. This is dangerous. We don't want to be here." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? The sun is out. The birds are chirping." We walk in, and Jimmy's the only black person or the only white person. And I do say myself, I'm pretty. So like everyone was like staring, and just Jimmy is just like, he is just surveying. He's like looking for exits, I'm sure. He's just checking things out. And I'm like, everyone wants to be our friend. This is awesome.
Yeah, not so much.
I love it. Well, I'm glad that we became friends, and I'm glad that you chatted with me. Once again, Jimmy, you're the bestest.
Well, thank you. I appreciate what you do.
All right, my friend. I will talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Officer Jimmy. Oh, you guys, I really appreciate all the stories that you guys offer me, that you are getting out, that you are normalizing, and that you are using to help somebody else that is going through something similar. So this stuff is always such a treat for me to hear, because I know that it's being used for something really good. Make sure that you subscribe to this channel, you guys. If you are not already, please do that. And if this is something that you are enjoying, send it to the people that you know. It's always really good to have some helpful conversation happening throughout the week, and taking care of your mental health, finding new ways to do self-care so that you can stay in their career, so that you can have some sanity, have some rest, have some fun. You know what I mean? Got to make room for that. So subscribe to my channel. And you guys, I have a cool giveaway this week. That is right. I have a cool giveaway. So make sure that you stay attuned to my Instagram page. And I will talk to you guys next freaking week. Got a cool guest coming up. A lot of solutions. All right, fam. Stay safe.